High mileage transmission fluid service. I purchased this BMW a few months ago, and when I purchased it, I knew it had high mileage around 250,000. Now I also know I'm the third owner, and I purchased this from a friend who knew the original owner, who mostly drove freeway miles. And when I purchased it, I was given a thick packet of documents of the maintenance and the repairs. As I went through all of these, nowhere in the documentation did I see that the transmission fluid had ever been changed or serviced. Now, one of the reasons could be because this happens to be a fluid that's good for life. But my question is, what's the life of a car? Well, I have a friend who works for one of the major manufacturers who also has friends in the engineering department. And their response was the manufacturer considers life of the car 10 years or 120,000 miles. So this car is easily done 2 lifespans, which means that fluid should have been changed a couple of times, which it was not. Now, there's a lot of controversy on changing fluid on high mileage vehicles. This transmission is not experiencing any problems whatsoever. It drives just fine, but the fluid is quite dirty looking. Now, if you change dirty fluid on a high mileage vehicle, you could shock that transmission by replacing dirty fluid with a lot of clean fluid with a high detergent in it. And that clean fluid could loosen up particles in the transmission, clean out tarnish on any valves, and then induce any problems. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to gently change a little bit at a time. Now, I've already done this once where I've changed out a couple of liters, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that because today I'm going to change a couple more liters. So slowly I will introduce new fluid into this transmission, and that'll reduce any shock load, and that'll give me peace of mind that the fluid that's in there, that the additives are now being replenished and they're not getting worn out, which is going to protect and make the transmission live longer and work better. Now, it's really important that you get the right fluid because transmissions of today have very specific fluid. So I had to do some research, and I found this fluid here online. This is a German fluid, and this is very specific to this transmission. And it's not cheap. It's, I think, around $14 a quart, or this is a liter, so $14 a liter. And it's a lot cheaper than replacing a transmission altogether. Now, I usually recommend doing transmission fluid service at least a pan, drain, and fill every 60,000 miles. But every car is different, and every manufacturer is different, and every driving habits are different. But personally, I feel it should be done at a minimum of every 60,000 miles, unless you have a CVT transmission. Now, this is a personal opinion, so don't take this literally, but personally, I feel that transmission fluid should be taken out at least a gallon at a time on a CVT every 30,000 miles. And it's usually relatively easy to draw a gallon out and put a gallon back in. Now today I'm going to need a couple of special tools. I'm going to need a scan tool to measure the temperature of this fluid, as well as a tool to put the new fluid in. And we'll bring those out and show those to you in a second. Temperature is very critical to making sure the fluid level is correct. Now, I also purchased this container here, which has quarts and liters on the graduations here. I'm going to capture my fluid in here. If you don't have a scan tool to measure the temperature, but you do have a way to get the fluid into the transmission, then you can just replace what you took out with the exact same amount that you're going to put back in. And you can be relatively certain you're going to get the fluid level correct. So this is the tool that I'm going to use, and I'm also going to be using a snap-on scan tool. And this is primarily for checking the fluid temperature of the transmission when we check the level. Now, you cannot use an infrared temperature tester on the bottom of the pan. It's just not accurate. So don't try to use that technique. There's a lot of different designs and manufacturers for putting fluid into these transmissions that do not have dipsticks. So you can take your choice. I got this on Amazon. It wasn't too terribly expensive. This one uses shop air to either suck out or to put fluid in. However, there are others out there that use a hand pump, and then you don't need shop air to put the fluid in. It also came with a set of adapters that looks like this, and there's a very specific adapter we're going to use today. It's simply going to be an adapter with just a hook on it like that, so it can go down into the hole. And it also came with a hose that allows us to put that fluid in. So we'll take the top off, we'll pour our fluid inside here, we'll attach it to the air hose right here, and then we'll put this hose into the transmission. So you'll see how that works. I also don't have any sponsorship with Snap-on at all. It just happens to be the scan tool that I have available to me right now. And this will do my job right here to get me my fluid temperature. And I know this because I used it once before for this purpose. Now, the fluid temperature of this transmission needs to be no more than 120 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're going to be using that scan tool to monitor that temperature. Now, I just drove this car 20 miles to here, to the shop. So I need to cool it down before I can actually do this service. And I want to cool it down before I take some fluid out, as well as it has to be below 120 degrees when I start to fill this up, so I can make sure that I get the fluid level correct. So let's raise it up and see what I'm going to do here. And we place it on our locks, and I want you to notice I placed a fan on the floor, and when the car was down I had it turned on, and I want to blow air on the bottom of the transmission because I want it to cool down. So it's still going to take a little bit of time, it's still a little bit warm, but I need to go in and make sure that fluid is below 120 degrees Fahrenheit so that I can take some fluid out as well as properly set that fluid level. I also want to show you something. I'm going to have to bring the camera in and show you the green tag. So right there on the bottom of the pan, that's that green tag right there. And that tells you what kind of fluid it's in there, as well as indicating that that's a lifetime fluid. And so that's indicating all the information we need, and I had to find the right fluid based upon that tag right there. So also right here, this plug right here, this is for actually draining the fluid in the pan completely. I don't want to take all the fluid out of the pan because I don't want to replace all the fluid. If you wanted to replace all the fluid, this is where you would go right here. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take out the fill plug, which is over on the side of the pan over here, and that's the one I'm going to drain fluid out of because that's also the one I'm going to add fluid from. I found a good light to show you where this fill hole is at. It's also going to be the hole where I'm taking my fluid out, so I don't take out too much or an excessive amount. Because remember, I only want to take out 1 liter or 2. I'm going to shoot for between 2 and 3 liters. So let's come on over to the side of the transmission over here. Right there, that's an 8mm Allen head. So you're going to need an 8mm Allen in order to take that out. And that's the plug that we want to remove. It's got a built-in seal, so there's no sealing washer on it. And when you service these, they actually sell them with new plugs so you can replace that seal. I'm not replacing that. You can see that I did this once. It's not leaking. There's no oil on it. So I'm going to take my chances. I think I'll be okay, and that won't leak again. So this is too hot right now. So I'm still going to have to let this cool down some more. So we're going to put the fan on it, lower the car down. We're going to let it cool down, and we'll come back shortly here and we'll do this service. So let's go in and get the data and check on the temperature of this transmission. And right down here, we can see that transmission temperature, I can bring that up a little bit more on the screen. So the temperature is at 104 degrees Fahrenheit. Now that 120 degrees Fahrenheit is the upper limit for this specific vehicle. So that temperature setting for the fluid level is very specific to every transmission and every make and model. So you have to check a reference manual to know the temperature of the vehicle and the transmission that you happen to be filling up. Now, this is a 2002 BMW 525i E39, and it does have the ZF transmission, and that is very specific to this transmission. So please don't use 120 degrees as a standard for anything you're doing without looking it up first in some form of reference material. So let's go ahead, let's pull the plug, let's drain the oil and get some new oil in it and then fill it up properly. So I don't have an 8mm socket, but I have an Allen wrench, which is 8mm. And if it happens to be a little bit tight, I've got an 8mm socket with a little extension on it. This will give me that extra leverage that I need. Okay, there we go. All right. Be quite a bit of oil that's coming out, so I'm going to get my bucket ready. Okay, so there we go. And it's quite dark looking as it starts to taper off. I've got about 1.5 liters right now. I'm gonna let it go just a little bit more. Remember, I don't want to do a whole bunch of fluid because it's going to shock it if I put too much clean fluid in there. So let me go ahead and just put this plug in here. Okay. It's going to trickle out. So here you can see, if you look at this graduation, it's approximately 1.5 liters. And here's my fill tank. Now I've already put oil in it. And there's a graduation here. It's literally a little above 2 liters. But what I would do is I'd open the fluid up. And I'll put a little bit in, but I'm not going to put much in. And you would fill that up. Now, please don't freak out because this transmission fluid looks just like motor oil. It looks brown. This is automatic transmission fluid. Not all automatic transmission fluid is red. So this is the right fluid. The next step is going to be to put the top on. And this tool is really tricky to get it started straight. So it's a little bit tricky to get the threads in there straight. So it takes me a minute. And I have to go backwards till it finds the right threads. And then I can go forwards. Okay. Now, air goes in here, and it's got a pop-off valve here. We're going to open this valve right here, but nothing will go in till I squeeze this lever right here. There's a little knob over here. This is to determine whether you want to push fluid in or suck it out. And so I have to make sure it's set correctly. Dispense is this way, which it is, and that's all set. Now I need to go ahead and hook the hoses up. So let me get this out of the way so I don't make a mess. We're going to use an angled adapter with the hoses here. So that quick couples. And then this quick couples over here. Now, after I put some oil in this car, I'm going to have to start it up so it will suck it up. It has to be running in order for me to properly check the oil level. So there's two things we're going to be watching. The engine will be running as well as the temperature does not go above 120. So let's go ahead and see what we can do. So we can put some initial oil in this, I believe. And actually, you know what's going to happen if I pull this plug out? some oil is going to come out, so it's going to act like it's full, and it won't go down until the car starts. So I'm going to actually bring my container back over. I'm going to get my air hooked up. I'm going to get my nozzle in there. I'm going to get it all ready to put oil in, and then I'm going to start the car up, and I'm going to watch till it starts to trickle out. So typically what we do, we overfill it and then we let it come down to the right level. But we also got to monitor that temperature. And hook my air up. Now currently this valve is shut off, which is what I want to do. Okay? So we don't want air going in there quite yet. Let's take this out. I'm expecting a little more oil to come out. Not too much. As soon as I start this up, it'll suck that down. So I don't know if I can get this in here. Let it sit right in there like that. We'll try to put that in there ahead of time. And let's go ahead and start this car up. Let's open up the air valve back here. Let's open the valve here. Squeeze the handle. Should be seeing the oil go down in the container. Sure, I've put in enough fluid. Let's see what's happening now. Close off the air. Let's close this off. Okay, so we see it dribbling out now, and it's going to get a little messy. We're going to watch that dribble. We're going to have our drain plug ready, and we're going to watch this temperature on that scan tool right there at 104. It's slowly climbing, so we're going to watch that, and we're going to watch this dribble until it slows down a little bit. We don't want to overfill it, so we just have to watch that. So I don't have to wait till exactly 120, but 120 is the max, so that's going to be maximum expansion. We are trickling out. What we're doing here though is we are watching, and we want to make sure that it doesn't go over 120. See it starting to slow down a little bit. Let's come down to the scan tool here. If I choose something else, we may be able to read that number a lot easier. And we can see the progression of that temperature as it's been climbing. So we're going to get it up to around 115 or so. That's going to be good. And I can actually close this off now. That's almost exactly how I want it. You see it slowly stopping there. So we're going to let it go just a little bit more. So that's how we want it right there. So it's drip, 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 drip. Now I can go ahead and put my plug in. I use a small amount of brake cleanup here just to make sure that gets non-oily so I can watch that for any kind of leaks later, but I don't think that's going to be problematic. And we ended up, when we buttoned this thing up, we are just under 120, 118, which is exactly where I like it. For this particular vehicle, remembering the temperature is very specific to the vehicle. And let's go ahead and get this car down. There's one final step. So after changing transmission fluid, it's a good idea to take the shifter and run it through the gears. Go from park to reverse to neutral to drive to 1 to 2, and pausing 2 seconds in each gear to fill up all the channels. Now, I'm not super concerned about it on this vehicle because I only removed about 1 liter to 1.5 liters. If I had pulled this pan down, which would have taken about 4 to 5 liters out of this transmission, now that would be concerned. I would want to run it through the gears, making sure there was no air in the passageway before I did my final fluid level. Because I only pulled 1.5 liters out, I doubt that there's any air trapped in there, but I will do that as a final step. I saw a drop just take place. Okay, so let's go run it through the gears now. However, as I stated, not super critical when you only pull a small amount out like this. Let's go ahead. First, we'll take and close off the air. There's an air relief over here. So we're going to depressurize this tank to make it safe. So we'll depressurize this tank to make it safe to use, or take the top off without making a mess. Once the car is on the ground, let's go ahead and run it through those gears. Let's make sure I have gear engagement. Pull my scan tool out of the way. AT temperature is now at 129. We'll put our foot on the brake. I'll step back, pull the shift lever down to reverse. I get a solid engagement. Neutral. Drive, we got engagement. Back to neutral. Back up to park. Let's go ahead and exit out of my scan tool. Let's turn this off. Shut it off, and we're done. It's been a little over 2 weeks since I changed the transmission fluid in my BMW, and I've put over 100 miles on it, and the transmission is functioning properly without any problems. So I would say this is a success. And I want to show you where I've got some of my information on the type of transmission and the temperature level that I needed to set that fluid level properly. This is the service information book I used, and I'm going to look up the type of transmission and the service information that I need to set the fluid level correctly. In this section, there are several BMW 5 Series vehicles listed. This one here is a ZF transmission, but it's only for the 540i model. This one here, the GM5L40E, is for a 525i, however, it's not for a 2002. And when I look at the side of the transmission, it doesn't look anything like what my transmission looks like in my vehicle. On the next page, I will find the information I'm looking for. This one is for a 2011 to 2016 525i. However, the one listed just below this one is what I'm looking for. This ZF5HP-19 transmission fits the model year as well as the 525i model, and the image looks just like what is in my vehicle. It uses lubricant reference ID AE. To determine the fluid type, I need to turn to another page at the fluid reference section, we see that AE stands for ESO type LT71141 automatic transmission fluid, so this is how I knew what type of fluid to use. The fluid level checking procedure section in this book got even trickier. Here is my 525i for 2002, but it says the transmission is the 5L40E, which we know is not correct. We know it's a 5HP-19, so regardless of this procedure listed here for the 2004 model year, I need to use procedure code number 40 to check the fluid level. Fluid checking procedure number 40 is telling me that the fluid should be greater than 86 degrees Fahrenheit. However, reading further, we see that the fluid temperature should be between 104 and 122 degrees Fahrenheit, or 40 to 50 degrees Celsius. Additionally, the instructions tell us that we must use a scan tool such as the BMW scan tool or equivalent to check the transmission fluid temperature. Below is a picture pointing out the drain plug and the fill plug locations. These instructions state that the handbrake needs to be set and the shifter moved through all the gears at idle speed, stopping for at least 3 seconds in each gear before properly checking the fluid level. As I mentioned previously, since I only took 1.5 liters out, I wasn't really concerned with that step. However, if I had drained the pan through the drain plug, I would have definitely run it through the gears before installing the fill plug to ensure the fluid level was set correctly.